Hi, I'm Lee Klimpson, partner and production director at Transmission, and welcome to today's webinar, Content That Converts, a storytelling masterclass for brands. In this webinar, we're going to explore the kind of messaging that doesn't just speak to people, but moves them. Great campaigns don't just push people, they pull them in. We're exploring how emotion, empathy, and great storytelling create messages that feel personal, relevant, and impossible to ignore. And to do that, to unpack all of that today, I'm joined by an incredible panel. First up, we have Ian Lawrence, Transmission's Head of Creative, who'll share how we shape storytelling, how we shape structure to land emotionally and cut through in a crowded space. Then we've got Matt Buckle, our Managing Director at Transmission. Matt brings a strategic and behavioural lens to proceedings with a deep understanding of what actually drives response. And finally, we're really excited to welcome Adam Thompson, Head of Marketing at Target Darts, who'll be sharing how the brand has harnessed Luke Littler's incredible rise to drive fame, connection, and commercial growth. We'll be talking storytelling, strategy, emotional insight, and real-world examples, and how to turn creative thinking into real commercial results. Plus, at the end of this webinar, do hang around because we're going to be offering a free 1-hour targeted transmissions workshop to the first 30 brands that sign up. So more to follow on that. So let's dive in. First up, Ian, tell us a little bit more about, in your opinion, what actually makes a good story in the context of advertising?
Context of advertising, I think let's look at it broadly. So I think a good story is something that connects people. I think what's important is that stories invite people in. They're not being preached to, they're not being spoken to, it's opening a forum, it's opening a discussion. And it's about finding something that's going to resonate with you, something that's going to strike a
finding that truth, isn't it?
Finding there's something at the heart of it that is going to either spark an emotion, spark a conversation. Ultimately in advertising, we want to spark an action. But I think storytelling is all about connecting. It's all about having that relevance to you that you can take and you can adopt and have a feeling off the end of it, whether it's a feeling of curiosity, whether it's a feeling of sadness or heartbreak or joy or just entertainment. You know, that simple notion of a story being something that you engage with.
And you say that great storytelling starts with the truth. Can you expand on that? What do you mean by truth in the context of advertising?
So a truth is finding that one insight, whether it's about us as people, whether it's about a brand, whether it's about a subject matter, that is almost like your first flick of the domino. So you'll find a moment or a theme or something that speaks to us as humans that allows that story to develop.
What you call a jumping off point, really.
It's a jumping off point.
Yeah.
So in an advertising sense, we have a data-driven insight that will dictate our strategy, that will dictate our first look at, okay, how do we turn a story into something from this. And there's so I'm going to paraphrase a brilliant screenwriting don, essentially, Robert McKee, who says that an audience is not looking for reality but for a truth. And I think when you've got an insight that is your anchor point, creativity can be anything off of the back of that. So I think what he means by a truth, not a reality, is we can take it wherever we want as long as it's got that consistent anchor that we can sort of feed back into.
Yeah, okay. So as head of creative, once you've got that core truth or insight, how does your brain work? When do you take it from there creatively? How do you take it to the next level?
It's almost having that as a bit of a sense check. So we'll look at, okay, what can we create as an overarching story? But then is that too far removed? But if it filters back to that insight, then you're good to go. As long as it's relevant and as long as it allows people to connect off it, then you're good. You're golden.
I think that's the key to it, because when we talk about stories, particularly from within the advertising space, we're not talking about we're talking about that real story. Yeah. We're not necessarily talking about an epic 3-hour movie in the way that people enjoy stories, or a 700-page Tolstoy novel. We tell stories to each other all the time. We'll meet up with a friend for a cup of tea, and we're telling stories to each other. What happened to me down the park the other day? What happened at work the other day? We're always telling those stories, and it's always based around the truth. So there is a connection there from someone that I'm talking to. That conversation, as we had a conversation earlier about dropping the kids off at nursery, and the journey of fatherhood. There is a connection there, as opposed to if I just walk up to some random guy in the street and start talking about what I did on the way in today. That's irrelevant, because there needs to be that connection there. There needs to be that genuine truth. So when we talk about creating a story, it's creating that connection, not necessarily creating a 3-hour opus.
Yeah. And, historically, ads are very good at doing situations. Storytelling's beyond that. Storytelling allows you to go a lot deeper, rather than just presenting, there's this, it's very factual. You can't deviate from that. Stories evolve and stories merge and develop, and I think that's the differentiating point between where advertising probably is traditionally and where storytelling allows it to.
Yeah. Do you think brands can create emotional truths, or is it always needing to be based on something that's already there?
It's a sticky point to create, I think. Connecting's about that human element, and speaking to people as humans rather than brands. And I think people can smell out authenticity very, very quickly. So I think what brands are better off doing is finding something that is an emotional truth and adopting it, taking it, amplifying it, making it their own. And that's something that comes with time. It's something that comes with consistency,
and knowing your brand, right?
100%. Yeah. And it's something knowing that you have to consistently prove. Yeah. People call BS very quickly once they see that you're acting against how you should be. The idea, just going back to what we were talking about earlier about storytelling coming off of an insight, the idea that storytelling without insight is fluff, and likewise emotion without that truth feels manipulative. And I think when a brand comes across with honesty and it comes across with integrity, that's when the connections are made.
What is your opinion on that, Adam, in terms of what happens when a brand tries to fake a truth? What do you think audiences can tell?
100%. I think authenticity, that's the key thing, right? You can't try and jump on something or try and create something that's not there. And I think people just see through it.
And as soon as they see through it, you lose that trust.
100%. That's it, right? It's like why are they getting involved in this sort of thing? I mean, outside of just the general ad and creative world, if you look at sort of social media and when events happen and you get sort of certain brands trying to jump on and say certain things about that just to almost be associated with that noise, people see right through it. It's like, why is that brand saying RIP to this person or whatnot, something like that? It's just irrelevant. It's almost like doesn't need to be there. So I think authenticity is key in everything that you do as a brand, right?
Yes, exactly.
Brands that believe in everything believe in nothing.
Right.
Weirdly, it's one of those. You need to get behind something, put your colours on the mast.
And I think authenticity is more important now than it's ever been with AI. The ability to be able to create, like you can say, event organisers can create their own event online and without actually holding an event. Like that's just one example. Yeah. But if you do that and you're creating a falsehood with the use of AI, then you're really opening yourself up to criticism and losing audience.
And it's a relationship. The relationship is based on trust, right?
Yeah.
You're not going to enter relationship with someone or something that you don't
Exactly.
trust. And trust lasts a lot longer than sort of any campaign does.
Yeah, great. You talk a lot, Ian, about the difference between a story being told well and told poorly. What separates the two?
So the analogy I use is, so a joke, for example, you can have a great joke when it's told by somebody who knows how to tell jokes. Brilliant.
You're gonna make people laugh.
It can be fumbled really easily as well. It's like, equally seeing a trailer for a film or reading about the plot of something, and then you go and see it and you're like, oh, that was it. What was that? that was a shame. So a story is a story is a story. I've seen a lot of really good stories lost in the way that they're told. And there's so much emphasis on doing that the right way that, again, going back to that truth, going back to that ability to connect, going back to that, the authenticity of letting people in, letting people run with it, let people take with it. And it's also about allowing for development. It's not, there is a start and an ending, I guess, in a traditional sense. But when it comes to brands, if it's something big enough and they believe it enough and they embody it enough, it can run and run.
If someone's watching this and thinking, our product just isn't that exciting, we can't tell a really interesting story, what would you say to them about the power of storytelling?
Meerkats.
So
So if we took something like the insurance world.
Yeah, it's a really good example.
You've obviously got, I don't know if I'm allowed to say names, but Compare the Market, they've created a story, they've created it's cultural, but equally, Confused.com, they've got their own story, they've got their own way of behaving. And as dry as a subject matter is, I think if you can find a relevant story around it, if you can find something that is authentic to your brand, it's authentic to what you believe in, how you want to be perceived attitude-wise and tone-wise, then it can be anything. And it helps differentiate. It's your identity. It's what helps. If Matt was wearing exactly the same shirt as Adam, yes to the I guess to the eye, they'd be matchy, but then you hear them speak and you'd hear them act in the way that they act, and that kind of differentiates. So that is what I think storytelling allows. If we're staying in the insurance world, if your advertising is we'll insure this, that, and the other, of course it's going to be matchy. But storytelling allows you to step outside of that.
I think it all comes down to that insight as well, right? If you've got the dullest product on earth, it's still got you can still make emotional connections to it. You've made that product for a reason.
Yeah.
You've made it for an audience. What is that audience getting from it? Like, even from our experience, there are so many. If you look back at some of the older work that we've done in the past, we were talking a lot about the functional benefits of some of our products, and actually we've pivoted now to be like, what's the emotional benefit of it? Like, what is that actual experience, right? If you look at the insurance world, I can't remember which brand it is, but they've sort of pivoted their campaign to say, buy this product today you're buying this for the future you. You're not buying it today for you, but you're buying it for you in 6 months' time when you've broken your leg on holiday or whatnot. And it's all about that. What is that's an easier way a different way to find that story through the insights and the emotional benefits that a product can bring as well.
Yeah, I think regardless of the sector, as you're absolutely right in terms of there is an insight there because there's a reason your product exists.
Exactly.
And it may be a dry sector, but with Compare the Market, what they did, and what a lot of those that have kind of created those brands is they've realised that the truth is no one likes shopping around for car insurance. It's a dull necessity. So what we need to do is make it simple. So the idea to make it simple, and I won't say the phrase.
Simple.
I'm resisting the urge. To see how good that storytelling is. That's how good.
I went there, sorry.
That truth is, I don't want to have to buy this product, but I need to. being that open and honest with yourself is, I'm selling something that people don't want, but they need it. And then they created the storytelling, they created the narrative out of that, and it's turned into a brand where people are proud of it. You know, they'll use it as a way of
they sold Meerkat merch.
Solding me.
Yeah.
I mean,
Creating a new
on
product
the
line,
book.
haven't you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
there's a whole host there of then you've got people bought into that story, because it's not a single touch point. As soon as you start to make that, as you mentioned, Ian, the benefit or that emotional connection as you've done at Target, it becomes bigger than just that purchase. It becomes a brand that are part of my story. It becomes part of how I see myself as a person, because that brand enhances that attribute of mine, that I've got too much time to shop around for car insurance, so therefore I use Compare the Market.
And Ian, what would you say if someone's looking to make more resonant, more effective work, what would be the one core key takeaway for them, in your opinion?
That cutting through the noise is more important than anything at the moment. I think you're bombarded, whether it's on a big screen, a little screen, on a radio, anywhere. Ding, 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 ding. Look at us. And I think that kind of, hey, you look at this nature is it gets lost. It's white noise. Whereas if you kind of invite people in, shape the story with us, adopt it, add your input to it as well, because there's something really lovely about when brands almost hand over that emphasis to an audience. That's something that we're always kind of conscious of. Where can it go? There's a really lovely moment where you almost set the ball rolling, and then you sit back, because people are brilliant. People can take something and adopt it and own it, and the fact that brands have got so many platforms that they're on and so many touch points, that what started on a TV as a 30-second can quite easily become something on a different platform, and that's I think that's the value, isn't it? You're not being told to do a certain thing or be a certain way. People act on doing things because they feel like they need to, not because they feel like they're told to. And that for me is what my message would be to brands, is just trust people, trust stories. Don't rely too much on, look, this is this service, this is this product. Focus on the benefit, focus on where it's relevant in your audience's lives. Just let them adopt it, let them take it on.
It's the key thing, isn't it, really? Putting yourself in your audience's shoes and looking at what are their motivations, and so that you're able to deliver your message that in a way that delivers on those pain points or those aspirations, and you're not just saying this is us. You're actually putting yourself in their shoes and delivering a message that resonates with them.
It's people seeing you in them, I guess, or people seeing them in you. That's the sweet spot, I think.
Absolutely. I mean, just the journey here this morning. So on average, the average kind of journey into work, so to speak, people will have been exposed to around about 3,000 advertising messages. If you listen to the radio, or you're getting ready for work, or on the car to the train station, you might have the newspaper, you pass billboards, you've been scrolling through your phone on social media. There are thousands of messages that are reaching you every hour on your commute into work. The ones that are going to resonate and the ones that are going to make an impact aren't the ones that are shouting the loudest. They're the ones that you see yourself in. Mm-hmm. They're the ones that are relevant to you. They're the ones that speak to you on an emotional level. It's not about shouting the loudest. It's about saying the right thing in the right ear at the right time. So when you're talking about relevancy, there is, if you can make that relevant emotional connection, you will stand out from those 3,000, because the human animal likes to see itself. We like seeing ourselves in our we like seeing ourselves reflected back at us.
Yeah.
We like talking to people that have got a similar viewpoint. We like seeing our emotional stories. We like making connections with people. We're a social beast. We are hardwired to make those connections with people. So when there is a connection coming out of the screen at us, there is a connection trying to talk to us from a billboard or talk to us from a social media ad, we're going to connect to it. We've got fractions of seconds that these ads are in our lives. But if you've got that little bit of connection, it's what just enough to hook you in.
Yeah. Storytelling shouldn't be about the brand, it's about the customer, right? Can you expand a little bit more on that?
Absolutely. The customer needs to be the hero of their story. And I think that's where one of the kind of key bits of storytelling to drive a result, so, content that converts, is because it's about the user. It's about that customer. And brands that put their customer at the heart of what they do, make them the hero, they become a guide to help make that purchase, to help get to where they want to go. And when you put the brand as the guide rather than the hero, because people want to hear about themselves. How can this brand help me? How can Target Darts make me a better darts player? It's not about making me a better darts player. It's about making me feel good when I'm playing darts. It's making me have a good connection with my mates. And that's what it's about. It's not about the kind of, it may come down to the quality of the tip or the tungsten shaft or whatever.
If you do want to be a better darts player, though, do buy Target Darts.
Oh, definitely.
yeah, for sure.
But that's what you say about it being an emotional story. Darts is a community, and I think that's what you guys have done brilliantly over the last few years. Is you built that community, and your messaging is about how darts players are, and not just buy this pair of Nike shoes and you'll run faster. It's a case of Nike is a brand that you feel part of, and it's about performance and success and just going out there and doing it. And that's the emotional truth behind the brand. But that's putting the customer at the heart of the brand, making the customer the hero, not about what you want to say. It's about what your customer wants to hear.
Because people react to feelings, not facts, right? That's always going to stick with you.
Yeah.
The work that we've done with you has always been about what's the takeout. You know, yes, you have got beautiful products, but when you get them in your hand, when you throw them, when you use them, what are you going to feel?
Yeah,
that's
exactly. Yeah, Matt, I love that idea of brands being a guide in someone else's story. But how big a shift is that in the mindset of marketers?
I think it's a fundamental one, but not a huge leap to make. But it is one that needs to be at the very core of what you do. Understanding that you're not the hero, that your brand is that people don't want to hear about your story. They want to hear about their story and how your brand can enhance that. If we kind of think back, where kind of a little journey through history of advertising, you know, we started off back in the Victorian era. It was all about shouting the loudest. You know, buy this soap, I'll make your whites whiter. It's that level of advertising with just shouting the loudest. And then you move forward into the kind of 50s and 60s, where you're kind of talking about how it makes you cool. Look at this, you know, buy our Ford GT because it makes you look amazing. Then you move forward to the kind of 80s and 90s, where it's all about, hey, look at these guys, aren't they cool? You can be cool as well. And they're drinking this coffee, and therefore you can have a sexy neighbour, just like the Gold Blend couple. But we've developed now to, it's not just that inferred kind of like, this is a cool brand because these are some people doing cool things. It's, you're cool, and I can make you cooler. And you're cool because you're doing a great thing, and my brand can be part of your story to make you cooler. Yeah.
My brand can help you move along your journey.
My brand can help you do what you need to do, because it comes from that insight, as you were saying earlier, Ian, that insight into that particular life stage they're at or that particular thing they want to do. We understand that, and therefore we can be part of that journey. But being that little part of the journey is what makes it really work, makes it resonate, because you're guiding people through their life. If you think of their story as, and maybe this is more of the shift, it's kind of understanding, like, my story is currently 46 years old. I'm hoping it's going to be 100 years long. And there are brands that are going to have touch points with me across that time. If a brand is just telling me about themselves, I'm just going to, and I might buy from them, I'm just going to buy from them for that one instance. If they're with me as part of my story, they're with me for 100 years. They're not with me for just one purchase.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a really interesting idea. And the it's about basically positioning the brands, positioning themselves not as the hero of the story, they're the guide, right? It comes back to what you were saying earlier. Yeah. And do some people do still, I think, associate storytelling with big brand campaigns and big budgets. Do you think it's a misconception?
I completely think that's a misconception, because stories, and when you use storytelling in your advertising, it's about making that connection. When you're making that connection, big brands doing, if you look at the likes of Pepsi making their lovely brand ads, or their Jean-Paul Gaultier doing lovely perfume ads, or whoever's going to do those lovely kind of storytelling things. But really, if you're telling a genuine truth, if you're part of someone's journey, you're part of it throughout. So whether you're that guide at the start doing a big brand TV commercial that's running all around the world, or whether you're delivering some content on social media or a testimonial on your website, or it's all part of the same story. It's all part of those touch points with that customer. And if you just consider brand storytelling as something that happens for big brands on their TV campaigns, then you're not really understanding the true power of being part of someone's story from day one to their 100th birthday.
Yeah,
I think a really important part of it as well is the media the granularity of targeting that is available to brands these days. Is it's not all just about what you can put on TV anymore. You've got that you can target someone based on things that they have engaged with on a tiny little device in their pocket while they're on the train. So a hell of a lot about an individual. So you can put that story in front of someone at the right time based on what they're engaging with. So I think that the media mix that brands use is just as an important part of that story. And if you can get that media mix right, you can tell that story to that right person in the right context, but at the right time as well. So based on their interests, so it gives you so much more breadth for telling far more stories and far more granular stories.
And that applies to any brand, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Where should they start? How do you put that approach into practice, would you say?
I think it comes back to that insight, right? It's like, right, okay, what's the product? What are we offering? What are the benefits that we're giving our audience? And when are they going to be most interested in those benefits, and how are they going to perceive those benefits? So you've got to get that insight across through your storytelling, and you've got to understand, okay, when's that person going to be most interested and most likely to engage with that story, and then find that right media mix to put that in front of them at that right point.
The right person in the right place at the right time is crucial.
Exactly that, yeah.
It's tactical as well, isn't it? Because we have this terminology of living beyond the 30. When we come up with a big idea, that is predominantly, we get a brief for a TV ad, but where else can it go? And it is about being relevant without being hey. That's the difference. I think that's the vital difference.
I think it's an important part when you see yourself as the guide in someone's story about how much you need to guide them. And as people kind of journey through that purchase process, it's how much of a guide do you need at any certain point. So if pardon the Star Wars analogy, you've got Obi-Wan Kenobi is quite a big character at the start of the movies in A New Hope, but then Luke doesn't need him so much towards the end, and he's just a Force ghost, and he's just giving him a little nudge here and there. And sometimes you need to be Obi-Wan Kenobi battling Darth Vader. You need to be in the middle of the Death Star helping the heroes escape. And sometimes you just need to be a little quiet voice in the ear as they're driving down and using the Force to blow up the Death Star.
It's a great analogy, and it really applies to our world in the dart space. Is in the last 2 years, there's been a whole influx of people that are brand new to the sport, and it's from our perspective, it's been about that, educating them and telling them, why buy this, why buy that, what is good about this, why is this good for you, and then more and more they go on in that journey. It's more just about that sort of quiet reminder, just to be like, oh yeah, actually, you know more about this now, Luke. We've handed it over.
Well,
There we go. Yeah. And then they can sort of make more decisions for themselves. But it's always being there and still telling those stories.
And from Target's perspective, do you think storytelling continue after purchase? Can your brand still play a role post purchase?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's all sorts that we do. We've sort of put this whole CRM program in place and stuff like that to make sure that we keep people. We want people to come back, right? And I think darts is a passion for many people, and therefore you've got constant reason to talk to people and different stories to tell to help them. And people want to improve. It's not like brushing your teeth where you just want to keep getting better at brushing your teeth, right? But it's a sport, and people do want to keep getting better, keep upgrading their setups. So there's always reasons to get back in touch and keep reminding people that you're there.
Amazing, great. And Matt, if you had to boil it down, what would you be the one mind shift change that you'd encourage marketers to make when they're thinking about storytelling?
I think just reminding yourself that it's not about you. A lot of brands, you spend all this time building a brand. You spend a lot of time in the industry. Maybe you've grown up in the industry, and you want to tell your story. Everyone's proud of their product. Everyone's proud of the service that they've brought to bear. I'm very proud of Transmission and the story that we've done, but that's not the story that our customers want. Our customers want to know what we can do for them. How we can be part of their story. And I think that's probably the biggest bit, because that's the easy bit that we go into, is you want to say something that's relevant to you. I want to talk about my journey into work this morning. I want to talk about my experiences, because they're the bits that are cool to me. But I think the key pivotal shift is understanding it's not about you. It's about your customers.
Don't be Luke Skywalker, be Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Absolutely.
Okay, noted.
Or Yoda.
Or Yoda. And Adam, obviously talking about Luke Littler, his rise obviously has been phenomenal. What was the first moment you realised at Target that it could be a game changer for you as a brand?
So we've worked with Luke for a long time. I think we signed him up initially to our youth development program as a 12-year-old.
So he was through the Elite Academy?
Through our Elite One sort of youth development program. Our chairman went and saw an event with a load of youngsters playing, and he got to the final of this event, and he lost to a 16. He was 12. He lost to a 16-year-old, and he came off and he was like devastated that he lost. And it was like, oh, you're 12 and 16-year-olds beat you. That's when our chairman sort of saw him and was like, this kid wants it. He really wants it. And over those few years, he was very, very, very good. He's just got this sort of natural ability in terms of, at that point, perhaps we didn't realise the impact that it could have on the sport overall, but we knew that there was a special young lad coming through. Obviously, when he first stepped onto that World Championship stage was back end of 2023, he won his first match, and he just had this swagger about him. And there was just, I think the audience fell in love with him. I think the fact that he instantly posted a photo of him having a kebab and a can of Coke afterwards, like to celebrate, just it's that authenticity that he came back to, right? You see,
to an extent.
No, you're right. No, I do see myself in that. If I had just won my first match of the World Championships, I'd probably go kebab as well.
But it's that relatability.
Yeah, you either see yourself or you see the person that maybe you want to be. It's like, I shouldn't have a kebab, but I'd love one. So it's like, fair play to him for going and having a kebab after that. And it is that relatability. And I think after that first match, it was like the media attention all of a sudden was really sort of hot on him. And it was, I'd say maybe 2 matches in that he I can't remember who played in his second. I mean, a guy called Matt Campbell, I believe. I think it was that, and then he beat Andrew Gilding in the next game. And Andrew Gilding was the reigning UK Open champion at the time, if I remember rightly. So that was a big deal. And we're like, this kid is really good. And the media attention didn't quieten down. It just kept growing and growing and growing and growing. And like you said, like his his face was everywhere. You couldn't move for this kid, and people were genuinely inspired by him. And you see yourself, and I think that's the magic of darts, is that you watch him do it, and sort of anyone sits there and be like, oh, if he can do it, how hard can it be? Oh, surely I can do it. It's not until you act like they go out and they actually give it a go. It's actually really difficult. But I think that's the inspiration, and that's why it has grown so much. So it was certainly that first World Championships was that catalyst for us.
And how do you transfer that momentum into something long term rather than it just being a spike in interest?
It comes back to that for us, that authenticity piece. Like for us, it wasn't, we weren't just jumping on a bandwagon. We were very much a part of his story. It's important to say, we weren't the story. We were a part of that story. And it's sort of making sure that we were very clear in telling our sort of truth in how we were there with him for that few years in the lead up to it. So, I think it's all about going back and being like, okay, how did we contribute to this? Why are we important to this? And how can we be important to you if you want to take this up? And can you achieve what he's achieved? If you want to, come to us.
You instigated something, like you said, it's that. When people jump on a bandwagon, it's okay, great, well done. See you next month when it's something else special that you can attribute yourself to. But the fact that you identified his brilliance, and you identified that hunger, and you identified the fact that there is that determination to be brilliant. And supported it and encouraged it, and that's what they were looking for.
I think it's important to say that. Yes, I think Luke was amazing for the sport and for the brand, because he just brought more eyes into it. But us and the PDC and the sort of other many other stakeholders within darts have been working so hard over the last decade or so to really grow the sport and to really doing all sorts behind the scenes. Like we've rolled out we have our own youth academy program, we have a youth development program, we invest in a lot of grassroots events, so that the infrastructure is there for people to now come into the sport. And we've invested heavily in the technology side to bring that world together, so people can play darts over the internet, for example, using sort of the automatic scoring systems and the camera systems and whatnot. So you don't need to. So we're revolutionising the sport. So the sport was primed. It was ready, and sort of brands like ourselves were there, and we're just waiting for that catalyst moment. And then Luke was that. Luke put it on the front page, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, people are ready to take this on, and that's what's helped us there.
What would you say is the one lesson you've learned from a young breakout star like Luke?
I mean, Luke is super authentic in everything he's done. He is himself. He doesn't pretend to be something that he's not. And I think that's why people really love him. He's not necessarily been super media trained or anything like that. He's when he first burst through, he came into our office a couple of weeks after the World Championships, and he was still that same 16-year-old kid that we'd been spending time with not long before, and it didn't really change him, and now he's growing up into this professional man that he is now. He's still 18, but he's certainly growing and maturing with it. But he's brought all sorts of new stuff in to elevate the sport, like the sponsors and stuff that are coming in through Luke because of the audience that he's bringing in, like the likes of Xbox and stuff that are on his shirt, and that's given us the chance to collaborate with brands such as Xbox ourselves. It's been I'd say it's something that. It's been a wild ride. It's been really, really exciting, but we were lucky that we were a big part of it, and we were primed to jump on it in an authentic way, if I like to say.
Fantastic. And Ian spoke a little earlier about emotional connection. How do you think about emotional connection when you're planning a campaign in a sport like darts?
Darts is all about emotion. As I sort of mentioned, one of the things I love about it is the accessibility of it. Anyone can pick one up and throw one, and most people's experience is picking up a old naff set of darts in a pub. You're throwing it at a knackered dartboard, but even then you're still getting that enjoyment out of it, and it doesn't matter who you are. you can still hit a winning double or a bullseye or whatever, even if you fluke it. But that feeling is still the same. You still get that same buzz and thrill and excitement and tension when you're playing. And that's the real key to the sport. And I think everything is about emotion. And I think that's why, I mentioned a bit earlier that in the past we talk about sort of functional benefits of a product. Being like, this particular dart has this specific type of grip or whatnot. Whereas now it's all about experience that thrill. That excitement, that connection, that enjoyment, and that's the story. That's really key.
It is literally at every point, because we've talked about this a lot. About have a dart in your hands and you're in front of a board. When you've got it, when you're waiting, there's hope.
Yeah,
you've got that moment when it's arcing. You're like
anticipation.
Yeah. And then
and disappointment.
Joy or disappointment, but it's everything. Yeah. And sport is so emotive. Yeah. It's one of those that make you feel great, make you feel awful. And I think you're quite right. That's something that you've really tapped into brilliantly, with the fact that it's so accessible as well. It's you can play on your own. You play in groups of mates. You can take it seriously. You can take it as casually as you like. But you're going to experience so much emotionally.
Yeah, there's so much in playing the game, but also watching the professional game as well. It's a sensational sport to watch. The crowds are obviously great fun and that, but actually just as a physical sport to watch, there's always jeopardy. That's what I love about it. It's not like, if there's a team that's 6-0 up in a football match with 5 minutes to go, it's pretty much over. Whereas if you're 8-0 up in a darts match, it's just that fact that you have to hit that double to check out. Anyone can crumble, and it can always change. There's always that little bit of jeopardy, and that's what I love about it.
It's great.
It's great fun.
You're literally only as good as the last dart.
Exactly,
so
right?
You throw 3 darts.
That's it.
And the first 2 might be great. There's still no guarantee that the third one's going to go in.
Exactly.
I've lost count the amount of times that you've watched, 2 treble 20s and then it lands in the 1. And that can happen to anyone. It's happened to greats.
Yeah, completely.
And that's, for me, I always enjoy watching darts for that reason, is there's literally every minute of watching a darts match, there's something there is that level of jeopardy constantly.
Yeah. And Adam, you talk about tapping into that emotion. What's one campaign that's really delivered? What worked and why?
We've had a few. I think one of my favourites, one that we worked on together, was September last year. We do a big product launch every year, and we launch a whole range of different product. And I think last year was about 15 different ranges that we launched. And historically, we create sort of an individual ad for each one and present them all at once. So it was sort of be quite a lengthy thing to chew into. And we sort of looked at the viewer rates on like YouTube and stuff, and the drop off rates were quite sharp and quite steep after sort of 20-30 seconds, and we needed to create something that was a bit more engaging, and we wanted to create something that did tell a bit more of a story. So we needed a hook that could bring all of those products together, and to give people sort of, we used a lot of analogy in it, but the concept that we came up with together was a sort of prize fighters boxing concept. So we actually built a boxing ring in our old warehouse. We got a legit boxer, heavyweight boxer, a guy called Johnny Fisher, who is he's a pro heavyweight boxer in his own right, to come and essentially tell this story of the products that we're releasing through this sort of boxing analogy lens. And we created what was my initial brief was like, I wanted it to feel more like a film trailer. So it's like, bringing in all of these different elements and telling a story, but not necessarily, going into too much detail on each individual ones, and getting it across nice and quickly so people got the idea of what was coming.
It was great.
It was good fun, wasn't it?
It was great.
It was a hot day. But,
it was a hot day. It was a hot day. But it was that, the fact, just going back to storytelling again, you make it where you want to make it. You've got that truth and you've got that jumping off point, and then the creativity. Because the first meeting, let's do it about boxing. Why are we doing it about boxing? Darts company, are you mad? But it works, because you put it in a different context, which it immediately makes it more engaging. It makes it different. It makes it, emotionally and intellectually more challenging as a viewer. But it was, kind of set precedent, I think, for the sort of stuff that we're doing going forward.
Yeah.
Beyond the obvious, that nice unexpected.
I think that's when you say, I mentioned earlier about the creative freedom you get with an insight, that truth that inspired that campaign and that made it work was genuine. And that's what made it. That's what gave you the creative freedom to go, into another sport to highlight the package and how the approach is. It was all based around that.
Yeah, and the insight was all about that sort of that head-to-head combat. That sort of one-on-one on a stage in front of an audience, face-to-face, and sort of how about how you overcome your opponent and the equipment that you need to do that. And that's the great script that we had was all about sort of analogies between boxing and darts that delivered it on that concept. And it was it worked really well. The numbers were fantastic and delivered for us.
Yeah. And since Luke's come on the scene, obviously your audience has expanded, has widened. How have you adapted your marketing to match that?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot more young people come into the sport. As I sort of mentioned, we've done a lot of work in advance of it all happening to make sure that the sport was more accessible to the youngsters. But it's obviously the media mix that you use. We do a lot more sort of short form social stuff, TikTok. We're quite big on TikTok. Do a lot of stuff there. There's this whole TikTok darts community, which is a beautiful audience of people. There's just creators galore where they're all sort of out there creating their own different bits and pieces, and there's some absolutely fantastic talent out there creating darts content, and there's just this hyper engaged audience. Like, people just lap it up. They're so passionate about it, even though many of them have only been really into it for a year and a half, say. They're so passionate and they eat up every single piece of content, and it's really it's been great to see. So certainly it's tailoring what we do to that younger audience and sort of changing our tone a little bit and sort of bringing ourselves down to that level and speaking to that audience a bit different.
And what role does instinct play in your marketing, your decision making, especially when you're doing moments of fast growth? What role does instinct play?
That's a good question. It's in those moments of fast growth, it's key, right? You've got to act quickly when that all these new people are coming in, and it's all there's this moment, and you've got to authentically make sure that you're capitalizing on it. And I think Luke came in on the scene, and we didn't have 12 months worth of data based on on that audience and that sort of engagement and stuff to look back on. So we had to act on instinct in a way, and right from product development through to storytelling and the media, it's like we had to make some quick decisions based on what we thought was going to be right, and take some risks as well. And thankfully a number of them paid off. And I think as a brand, we've always been about that premium product and the serious catering towards the top tier, best of the best darts players. And we made a decision quite quickly. Let's put out a Luke Littler magnetic dartboard, because there was that great video that went round of him as a kid in his nappy playing on this magnetic dartboard that sort of went around as he was coming through. So it was like, okay, we need to let's pivot our brand slightly and create that. And that's obviously helped us get into new retailers and audiences as well. So, we've a huge presence now in like Smith's Toys, and we've got this great big installation in Hamleys, which is, that was based, we had to do that based on instinct. It wasn't necessarily data led at the time. So instinct has been key.
Yeah. You mentioned risk. What's been the biggest creative risk that you've taken, and how has it paid off?
Creative risk, I think, relinquishing a little bit of control. I think working with a lot of the creators, some of the giving them freedom to sort of work with our products and tell their own stories about the products. There's one TikTok creator who he took a set of our Luke Littler darts, and he created this really funny video of, he's like, "Oh, these don't make you a better darts player," and then he proceeded to throw a 9-darter with them, and at the end of it he was like, "Oh, maybe they do, go and buy these darts." And like, we didn't ask him to do that. He just, we sent him the product, and he did it. And it's been about that. It's been sort of been like, okay, you go and tell your own story with these products, and that's certainly been something, a way that the business has pivoted, and something we wouldn't necessarily have done a few years ago, for sure.
Yeah, fantastic. And finally, what advice would you give other marketers who are looking to turn a breakthrough moment in their area, in their arena, into something bigger?
I mean, it comes back to the points we made earlier. Is make sure that you're not highlighting yourselves as the reason for it, because you've got to be aware that it's not just you weren't the only reason that this has happened, but make sure you do highlight how you contributed to it. I think that's all about, it comes back to authenticity at the end of the day, to be like, why are we such an authentic part of this? And if you want to become involved in it, that's why you should become involved with us. I think that's a really key area, is don't try and force your way into a story. It's like, make sure that you've got that insight, and it can come really simply and easy, and be honest. Absolutely. I think that is it. I think it does come back to that authenticity that we talked about earlier, and it is so important these days with the sort of the worlds of social media and the accessibility that people have to talent and everything else. Authenticity really is key, and I think it's just making sure that you can tell a story that resonates and engages and people believe.
Fantastic. Great stuff. Well, Adam, Ian, Matt, thank you so much. And that's a wrap. So yeah, huge thanks to Adam, Ian and Matt for today. I hope you've got some incredible insights to take away from that webinar. And some really fresh thinking about how to position your brand, how to make people feel, how to act, and how to feel inspired. Before we go, a quick reminder, if you're interested in finding out more about the Targeted Transmissions workshop, we'd love to hear from you. It's a 1-hour free workshop that goes into your strategy, looks at your storytelling, finds out how you can connect with your audience and really create content that converts. We'll drop the link in the chat now, and hope to hear from you soon. Thanks so much for joining us.